It is in this perspective that, in his message on October 7, 2022, to the international community on the theme of this edition of the IDG entitled "Our Time Has Come, Our Rights, Our Future," Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, said, I quote, "Investing in girls is investing in our common future," thus inviting governments to invest in girls. For the government of President Patrice Talon, this is not a new challenge. Between the past edition of the IDG and the one that is being celebrated today, Benin has made considerable progress and achieved notable successes in the protection of girls, their right to sexual and reproductive health, and their retention in the education and learning system. Let it be noted here, the promulgation of the law of December 20, 2021 on special provisions for the repression of offenses based on gender and the protection of women in the Republic of Benin, in which even romantic relationships between a teacher and her students are strictly forbidden in order to keep girls in school.
Dans laquelle même les relations amoureuses et ou intimes entre un enseignant et son apprenante ou son élève est formellement interdite dans le but de maintenir les filles à l'école et de promouvoir l'excellence. La promulgation de la loi modificative du 20 décembre 2021.
The promulgation of the amending law of December 20, 2021 on sexual and reproductive health in the Republic of Benin, which regulates abortion and protects girls against the consequences of clandestine abortion, the promulgation of the amending and complementary law of December 20, 2021 on the Individuals and Family Code in the Republic of Benin, which allows for the possibility of transmission of the family name by the daughter if desired, etc., etc. In addition to these legislative measures, the government, with the support of certain partners, is making major investments in girls' schooling and keeping them in school and offering a second chance to those who have dropped out of school in order to ensure their professional empowerment. Beside the measures of exemption of school fees for girls, the government, through the Ministry of Social Affairs and Microfinance, is deploying the Women's Empowerment and Demographic Dividend, the SWED project, which has been providing free school kits to thousands of girls from poor households for the past 3 years, training and free installation kits to 5,460 girls who have dropped out of school, and professional integration of 1,200 unemployed girls with diplomas on the national territory.
Et l'insertion professionnelle de 2200 filles diplômées sans emploi sur le territoire national. Ainsi, ces derniers mois, le développement à grande échelle de la campagne Agbazache dans les collèges et lycées et la création de 750 espaces sûrs dans les 60.
Furthermore, in recent months, the large-scale deployment of the Agbazache campaign in secondary schools and the creation of 770 safe spaces in the 77 communes to sensitize girls on risky behaviors and everyday issues are all accompanying measures to protect girls and guarantee them a better future. I would like to express the government's thanks to all the technical and financial partners, non-governmental organizations, and civil society organizations that work daily to protect girls' rights and improve their living conditions.
Qui œuvrent quotidiennement pour la protection des droits des filles et l'amélioration de leurs conditions de vie.
Well, moving on from that, let's tell you, Malawi's government has banned the sale of food in primary and secondary schools as it continues to battle one of the worst cholera outbreaks in the years. The ban came into effect ahead of the new school year, which began on Monday. Malawi has recorded 117 cholera-related deaths and over 4,000 cases since the first cases were reported in March.
To Malawi now, where the government has banned the sale of food in primary and secondary schools as it continues to battle one of the worst cholera outbreaks in years. The ban came into effect ahead of the new school year, which began on Monday. The Health and Education Ministries are urging parents to pack homemade food for students. Universities and colleges are urged to ensure food vendors and suppliers adhere to the standard operating procedures issued by the Health Ministry. Malawi has recorded 117 cholera-related deaths and over 4,000 cases since the first cases were reported in March.
We are talking of 117 deaths that have been recorded across the country, and so far 23 districts have been affected out of 28 districts in the country. So it's quite widespread. As of last week, we only had 22 districts, so there's one more district added to the number of those that have been hit by cholera, and we have over 3,500 cases. So if you look at the school setup, I think that's where you find a huge population of people. You're talking of school-going children in primary school as well as secondary school. So there is a large number of people at one place, and the government has put this ban because they want to control the spread of cholera. You're talking of children ages between 7, 6, up to around 14, 15, and there are quite many in number. So if you go to a primary school, a typical one, you'd find more than 100 learners in one class, and probably over 1,000 at one school. So the ban is sort of a way of trying to prevent the spread of cholera, knowing that you have a large number of people gathering at one place, and these are kids, for God's sake. So as of last week, the government came up with a revised national cholera response plan, which has 6 points, and this one will require about $20 million to be implemented within 2 months. So in this one, they want to promote sanitation. They also want to ensure that there is quality treatment and care provided to those that have already been infected by cholera, and they also want to speed up. To improve on awareness. So awareness is key. People have to know how to prevent cholera, and part of the programs that the government will be doing in the next 2 months is actually to ensure that people have information and they prevent it on their own. On top of that, they want to equip the public health care system with necessary equipment, materials, so that they should be able to treat as well as prevent the spread of cholera. So the target is that before the rains start in 2 months' time, they should wipe out the cholera cases that Malawi is currently facing.
Still on the African scene, crossing over to Mali. Mali's leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, received the draft of a new constitution on Tuesday, a key part of the military's bid to retain power and the crisis-hit country until 2024. Now, the military has pledged under the pressure to hold elections in February 2024 and to hand over power in March of the same year. More information and the following reports.
Leader Colonel Assimi Goïta received the draft of a new constitution on Tuesday, a key part of the military's bid to retain power in the crisis-hit country until 2024. The text of the preliminary draft constitution has not been made public and arrived 2 months after it was originally due, but the commission chair set up to write it said the deadline had been extended. Hussein Sameka warned Goïta, any constitution will be subject to challenges, criticisms, and controversy, the transitional presidency said in a statement.
The adoption of a new constitution will be a crucial milestone in the process of rebuilding the state. The drafting commission of the new constitution expresses the fervent wish that the draft be shared and accepted.
Malian authorities dominated by the military, which seized power in August 2020, cite the drafting of a new fundamental law as one of the reforms needed for the refoundation of the state. They announced the commission in June after extending military rule until 2024 and have said the constitution will be put to a referendum in March 2023.
The submission of the draft of the new constitution is only one step in the process. As soon as only the sovereign people will be called to a referendum to decide on the document. By adopting the new constitution, it is the legal founding act of Mali Kura, a new Mali that the people will have sovereignly taken.
The military has pledged under pressure to hold elections in February 2024 and to hand over power in March of the same year. In return, the regime secured an end to the sanctions imposed by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. Increasing cooperation in trade between China and Africa is opening doors for many companies and others in the continent. That includes including Kenya, which has become the first African nation to export avocados to China, boosting the economy and benefiting players across the avocado value chain, including farmers. We have more for you on that.
This is Kakuzi Public Limited Company, one of Kenya's listed agribusiness firms in the capital, Nairobi. Workers here are preparing the company's latest consignment of fresh avocados. The avocados are destined to be sold in one of China's largest fresh fruit and vegetable markets, Huizan, in Shanghai. Kakuzi is one of the lucky 15 Kenyan farms that have been granted access to the Chinese market. Chris Flowers is the managing director of the company.
This is our first year of exporting, and our fruit's been received very, very well. We've got some big consignments arriving very much at the moment, and for the rest of the next 4 to 5 weeks, we're going to have quite a lot of fruit going into the Chinese market. And this learning curve is going to be something that we're walking, essentially. We're walking that journey over the next month or two, and hopefully by next year, if there are challenges or difficulties, they're ironed out, and we're able to have a very smooth export process.
This is the third shipment since the two countries signed an export agreement in January this year. The company has so far exported 210 tons worth of fresh avocados to China.
It's here that Kenya's premium avocados are graded, sorted, and packaged for shipment to one of the country's most lucrative markets, China.
Grace Njero is the technical manager of the company. Njero is optimistic about the Kenya-China trade deal.
We hope that this is a market that can be accessed by most farmers in Kenya. It has helped us know where to train our farmers on, because we are the lucky ones to have gotten up ahead of them, and then to ensure that they also get the knowledge on how to produce good fruit that meets that kind of a market. So it has opened many training opportunities for our local farmers.
Jonathan Kipruto is the assistant general manager of the farm. Kipruto says the company believes in maintaining the export standards set by China.
I believe that the main thing is ability to meet the quality requirements which are spelled out by the Chinese market, and then maintain those standards. That will enable us to continuously supply what we produce to the China market.
Trade volume between Kenya and China has risen over the years.
From January to July 2022, the total value of Kenya's imports from China was over $4.5 billion, a year-on-year increase of 25%. The total value of Kenya's exports to China was over $156 million, a year-on-year increase of 9.6%.
The Chinese market is hugely important for Kenya. We've got traditional markets, Europe, Middle East, but the Chinese market really gives us great options. As well, it complements a lot of the fruit that we produce. So the European, Middle East market tends to favor bigger fruit, and the Chinese market favors a smaller fruit. So it's a complementary market.
The breakthrough is expected to increase Kenya's foreign exchange earnings and boost the local economy.
Crossing over to Ethiopia, in the latest development, one person has been killed in an airstrike in the capital of Tigray, the main hospital in the northern Ethiopian breakaway region, and this was stated on Friday. Now, sadly, a 60-year-old man was killed, and Kibrom, an official at the Ida Hospital in Mekelle, stated. More information in the following commentary. In the latest development, one person has been killed in an airstrike in the capital of Tigray, the main hospital in northern Ethiopian breakaway region, stated on Friday. There was a drone attack this morning at around 5:30 a.m. A 60-year-old man was killed, Kibrom, an official at Ida Hospital in Mekelle, stated. A dead body arrived at Ida Hospital after a drone attack in Mekelle town around Desta Hotel, the hospital announced on its Twitter account. The Ethiopian government regularly asserts that it only targets military targets and accuses the rebels of staging civilian death. Sadly, fighting resumed on the 24th of August between rebels and pro-government forces after a 5-month truce. Since then, At least 17 people have died in airstrikes, according to hospital officials. Northern Ethiopia has been engulfed in war since November 2020, after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed sent the army to dislodge regional authorities from the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, accusing them of attacking military bases. The return of violence over the past month has dashed the slim hopes of peace negotiations. The rebel authorities said on the 14th of September that they were ready for talks under the aegis of the African Union, removing a major obstacle to discussions with the government. Fighting, however, persists. The rebels in several Western countries have denounced the presence of forces from Eritrea, a country bordering northern Tigray that has already lent a hand to the Ethiopian army during the first phase of the conflict. The outcome of this war is unknown. It has been marked by abuses against civilians by both sides, displacing millions of people and plunging hundreds of thousands more into near starvation conditions, according to the United Nations. A United Nations expert report on Monday accused the federal government and its allies of crimes against humanity and of using famine as a weapon of war by blocking basic services and access to the region, where 90% of the population is in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. Ironically, the government rejected the reports, denouncing its contradictory and biased findings.
Thousands of Haitians demonstrated on Monday in Port-au-Prince to protest against the government and its call for foreign assistance to deal with the endemic insecurity, a humanitarian crisis, and the burgeoning cholera epidemic. The day after, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for immediate deployment of a special international envoys in Haiti to help the crisis-hit Caribbean state. The demonstrations in the capital was mirrored by violence, with police using tear gas to disperse looters. We have more for you on that.
Thousands of Haitians demonstrated on Monday in Port-au-Prince to protest against the government and its call for foreign assistance to deal with endemic insecurity and the burgeoning cholera epidemic. A day after, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for the immediate deployment of a special international armed force in Haiti to help the crisis-hit Caribbean state. The demonstrations in the capital was marred by violence, with police using tear gas to disperse looters. Several people were shot and one person was reported to have been killed during the rallies. Protesters blamed the police for the fatality.
This request, this government call for international armed forces, is an unconstitutional act. This is an act against the state. It is an action against the Haitian people's demands. We want a free country where everyone can eat, have health care, and live like human beings.
Haiti has been the scene for several weeks of violent demonstrations and looting after the announcement by the head of government of an increase in fuel prices. Demonstrators calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who appealed for international support, also took to the streets in other cities across the country. The Haitian government on Friday formalized its request for international assistance to staunch spiraling insecurity. Haiti, the poorest country in the Americas, is facing an acute political, economic, security, and health crisis, with the cholera epidemic now looming. Circumstances that have paralyzed the country and sparked the breakdown of law and order. Since mid-September, the country's largest fuel import terminal in Varro has been controlled by armed gangs, and last week health experts warned of a resurgence of cholera 3 years after an endemic that killed 10,000 people. The health ministry said Monday 32 confirmed cases of the disease and 16 deaths have already been recorded, with another 224 suspected cases during the period from October 1st to 9th. The ministry also said cases have been detected in Port-au-Prince prison, the largest in the country, where the conditions of detentions are dire.
Crossing over to the African scene in Lesotho, a military political novice has won the most votes in legislative elections, but fell short of securing a parliamentary majority that could have ended the long-running political gridlock. Now, Revolution for Prosperity, a party set up only 6 months ago by a 64-year-old businessman, won 56 out of 120 seats in parliament. More information in the following commentary. In Lesotho, a millionaire political novice has won the most votes in legislative elections, but fell short of securing a parliamentary majority that could have ended long-running political gridlock. Revolution for Prosperity, a party set up only 6 months ago by a 64-year-old businessman, Sam Matekana, won 56 out of 120 seats in parliament, according to final results published by the Southern African Countries Electoral Commission. The small mountain kingdom has been governed for the past decade by a string of coalition governments that have proved fractious and frail, and no premier has served out a full 5 years tenure. Matekane, who styles himself as a champion of the country's business community and was considered an outsider in the vote, came close to an outright win but will now have to secure the support of smaller parties to form a government. His track record and people's anger towards other parties won him votes, said Pulhang, a politics lecturer at the National University of Lesotho. The Democratic Congress Party, led by Mathibele Mokotu, came in second, securing 29 lawmakers. The All Basotho Convention Party, which led the outgoing government, suffered a sharp drop in support, winning only 8 seats. Lesotho, which is completely surrounded by South Africa, ranks among the world's poorest countries, with more than 30% of its population living on less than $1.90 a day. In an interview with the elections, Matekane said he hoped to turn things around, bringing his business skills to the government to relaunch the economy and tackle public debt and unemployment. A philanthropist he has become, he is now a popular figure in the kingdom, building schools, a stadium, and even a theater. He funds scholarships, sponsors the National Football Federation, and has helped with the purchase of vaccines during the coronavirus pandemic. About 1.5 million people were registered to vote in the October 7 elections. More than 50 parties were in the running. The outgoing Prime Minister, Makoketsi Majoro of the ABC party, did not seek another term after being ousted as party head earlier this year. His predecessor, Thomas Tabane, was forced to step down in 2020 after being accused of ordering the murder of his estranged wife. Charges against him were dropped in July. On Saturday, the day after the vote, a small crowd of Matekane supporters gathered in the capital, Maseru, chanting, "Prosperity is live," to celebrate an early lead in the count. The 120-seat parliament is chosen by a mixed electoral system. 80 lawmakers are voted in by the constituents, while another 40 seats are distributed proportionally. A constitutional monarchy where the king has no formal power, Lesotho has long been beset by political turmoil that has hampered development in the country. Sadly, Lesotho has been buffeted by coups and attempted coups since its independence from Britain in 1966.
In Lagos, Nigeria, various groups have come up with initiatives to help indigent families. One of such initiatives is the Lagos Food Bank Initiative, led by Michael Sombola. With the current dire situation, many in Lagos believe initiatives like this will help tackle hunger and malnutrition among indigent families across the country.
Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, is grappling with rising food prices that's affecting the living standards of people, according to the World Bank. Inflation was likely to push an additional 1 million Nigerians into poverty by the end of 2022. Various groups have come up with initiatives to help indigent families. One of such initiatives is the Lagos Food Bank Initiative, led by Michael Sombola.
Doing here today is like a frontline assistance to those who are at the end of hunger and food insecurity. We go from one community to the other, profiling families and then seeing their level of vulnerability, looking at their purchasing power, their disposable income, and then see how we can come in to help bridge that hunger gap. If you look at the situation of the country, there's prices of food have gone really high.
Against the scarcity of food right now, I don't think people can afford it. I want to buy ragolis of kerosene. Ragolis of kerosene I'm buying 200 is now 1.15. Can just imagine the amount.
We beg our government to provide us something. If we want to do election now we then go use. Now we will go, they bring our card, they queue. Please tell our government, may they not forget us.
Some beneficiaries want the government to address inflation and live up to its responsibilities to citizens. But there is one fact to deal with. At least 70 million Nigerian children are undernourished, the second highest in the world, according to a 2021 UNICEF report. This is a cause for concern for the nutritionist.
The government can empower PHCs, which are primary healthcare centers, so they can be able to efficiently tackle malnutrition at the grassroots level. Food insecurity has a very big role to play in malnutrition. If the food insecurity is sort of tackled, we'll definitely see a reduction in malnutrition cases.
According to Nigeria's National Bureau for Statistics, Food inflation is at 23.12%, while unemployment stands at 33.30%. With the current dire situation, many here believe initiatives like this will help tackle hunger and malnutrition among indigent families across the country.
Now for more information on stories across the African continent, we head into the African newspaper review with my colleague Hazel OGOIGBE. We'll be right back. Well, this is still the 1 p.m. English news on Golfe TV Africa, and I'm with my colleague, Hazel.
Very good afternoon to you, Metokwe Adoglo. How are you doing today?
I'm perfect. I'm absolutely perfect. Now to get into the nitty-gritty of it and nitpick the newspaper reviews we have. We start off from Le Matinal, picking on papers from the local territory. Now, Le Matinal reveals Razaki Amouda Issoufou élu président. That means he is president-elect to the Constitutional Court. On the bottom half of the paper, it talks about, on page 10, talks about the new relationship, the new era of relationship between Beninese and the Netherlands. Benin and Netherlands. You should remember the president of the Republic of Benin had a relationship, had traveled to the Netherlands. They have foster better relationships with the Netherlands, with the Netherlandians, they call them. Moving on from that, we head to the next paper of the edition to touch on the Matin Libre. The front page of the Matin Libre also speaking on the president-elect to the Constitutional Court, Razaki Amouda. That's what we have on page 7. Also, Senachu Hospital, we have the Hospital Senachu has been highlighted there for certain irregularities that has happened after we talked about the Friday that had the situation of power break and deaths that occurred. Moving on from that, we head now to more comfortable papers, more comfortable terrains as we touch on the nation Nigeria. We can touch on the nation Nigeria. The front page of the nation Nigeria reveals I'll leave a secured country. Buhari shows Nigerians. President offers national honors and 443 Nigerians, 7 foreigners. I'll leave a country secured. I'll leave a country secured. Do you think Nigeria is secure enough? We still have insecurity.
The insecurity in Nigeria cannot be overemphasized.
So this is just
Now this is the month of October. The elections come 2023, right? February. And that's barely like 6 months. And then the present president of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, that has been in office for the past 8 years, is saying he's going to leave a secured country. Well, I'm optimistic, but I'm wondering the magic he is going to perform in 6 months. The magic he's not been able to perform in the past 10 years. I'm wondering how he's going to perform that.
Well, maybe this to raise question on the fact that he has just put in 1.4 trillion Nigerian naira into the arsenal of the country to help fight terrorism. So maybe this is how it's going to get this done.
Fingers crossed.
We remain optimistic, but also being very realistic. We think it's something that might not be achieved. All right, President Muhammadu Buhari, believing he can achieve that. Now, looking on the top half of the paper, it says Lagos to get approval for Lekki Airport. We have that on page 5. That's Loads federal government. Now, is there any problem with the Muritala Mohammed Airport?
No,
it's big enough and it keeps expanding?
Yeah, definitely. There's no problem with the Muritala Mohammed International
Can I cut real quick?
Yeah.
To me, this is what it seems to me. Eco Atlantic is emerging.
Exactly.
Beautiful, big.
Yes.
We have Lekki, and this is where the wealthy, the creme de la creme.
Lekki, VGC, Victoria Island, Banana Island.
It seems to me that there's going to be more segregation in the sense that those of them that have their private jets want to be closer at home. So they can land their private jets just there, smack down there, on the other side of Lagos, and they could just move straight home instead of landing in Muritala Mohammed. So this seems to me, what do you think?
So, well, you have a point talking about the fact that it's segregation, but then there's also the question of convenience. Considering the fact that when you're moving over from the island, you know, talking about Lekki, VGC, and you're going to the mainland because the international airport is on the mainland, you find out the amount of traffic on the mainland is terrible. So if you could do something to alleviate the traffic, and if you say segregation, then why not if not?
I see your point. Your point now is that, okay, to help alleviate traffic and say, okay, how much people are coming in from
and
Lagos
then, of course,
and
for
moving to
crying out
Lagos?
loud, Lagos has a lot of people. People want to travel, they come to Lagos. So why we need more international airports?
So you're for the international
I'm for
airport?
the international airport 100%.
All right, Hazel's for the international airport. I think it's a little bit of jibby jabba, but let's go. Your assembly kicks over EFCC invitation to members. We have it on page 4. And why am I yet to release manifesto by OB? Page 3. Why is he yet to release a manifesto?
Definitely, he has more than 4 months, so I don't think there should be any pressure, considering the fact that APC has not even brought out their campaign panel. So there should be no pressure on the Labour Party.
What's doing well?
Exactly.
Take your time, OB. Now, Dangote, Obijana Cement properly acquired. Obijana Cement properly acquired. Okay, we have that on page 5. Dangote still owning a lot part of Nigeria. Looking on the bottom half of the page, says IMF cuts Nigeria's economic growth by 3.2%. That's very disappointing. 3.2%. Is this not due to the inflation we're having in Nigeria?
It's due to the inflation, due to the prices of things skyrocketing, due to the dollar, the price of the dollar, the fall of the naira, a whole lot of factors influencing the fall of the economy.
Of the naira. All right, also strike. How House of Reps brokered truce between federal government and ASU. Brokered? And when you say brokered truce deal, does this not mean a resumption of school activities?
Well, when you're talking about brokering, it simply means there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's, apparently it simply means the tunnel is very close and the strike is getting closer to being called off. But it's still like, at the end of the day, they haven't still come out to say, this is the year, this is the time, this is the date that federal universities will call off their strike. So it's still just hope, a speckle of hope.
That expression reminds me of an anecdote talking about how, why is the light at the end of the tunnel and not in between the tunnel? Why must it be at the end of the tunnel? Anyway, that's the expression. That's how the expression goes. All right, move on from the nation. Now you head to the next prepare of the edition. Am I speaking too fast, so I should dial it down a little bit?
Dial it down a little bit.
All right, now. So, to the Punch. The front page of the Punch reveals presidential fleet funding rises to 81 billion on the Buhari. We have that on page 2. President fails to uphold pledge to reduce aircraft. Budget for Aso Rock Villa refreshments jumps to 202 billion naira.
Let's talk about
that. We're coming to that. Let's go back to the point. There was this point during the Goodluck Jonathan's era, when they talked about gardening and how much money was going into the plants of Aso Rock. And Nigeria's comedians came out that time and say, wow, this is how much Nigeria is spending on the gardens? This is how much Nigeria is spending on plants? Man, I want to be a plant myself. And now with the new budget that came out, did you look at the new budget and see how much is being spent in Aso Rock alone?
Like, it's like Aso Rock is gulping in a whole lot of money. But then that is the seat of the president. That's not even the issue. The issue right now is on menu. Is it not the menu you just read?
Yeah.
Like, the question I ask myself is, please, what are they eating in Aso Rock?
No, it's the creme de la creme that are coming to eat.
Because at the end of the day, you find out that ASU has been on strike. I keep talking about ASU because education is the basis of development of any country. If the educational system of a country is gotten right, then you're very sure that the country is on its way to development. Now, the educational system for federal universities in Nigeria, they've been on strike for the past 6 months because they need their systems to be improved. The lecturers are asking for a just cause, but yet the federal government has not released the money. Now you see the budget and you're seeing the amount of money Aso Rock is spending on menu, on food. It begs the question of where the priorities of Nigerian politicians and our president is.
It's scale of preference and priority. Talking about priority, look at Thomas Sankara. I was watching an old documentary on Thomas Sankara.
Yeah.
And he talked about how a lot of Burkinabe ministers were very unhappy with the terms he said for ministers, in the sense that a lot of ministers had to share vehicles to go to work. He did not want each minister to have their own vehicle and have their own entourage. He said, please, we don't have money. We need to conserve what we have. We have to prioritize. We, the ministers, we work for the people. We are the civil service. We are working for the people. We should not have all the things these people do not have. And so if the people don't have this, we should not have this. Now, you can say what you want about President Talon, but it's very clear to me. I don't know, however, how they manage finances. But what I see and what I understand is, for example, I was at a friend's father's burial. You were with me at that burial. And the Minister of Justice was in attendance in this burial. The Minister of Justice came into this burial and nobody even noticed the minister had come into the gathering. He came in with 2 vehicles, very quietly took his position, sat down.
the Minister of Justice for the Republic of Benin to a very simple burial, and nobody knew. If it were Nigeria, 10 kilometers away from where the president, from the destination, even before he got to the, you would hear the sirens, 10 vehicles,
a whole lot of paparazzi.
And now to make just that simple movement, do you know how much money that's going to spend? Okay, talking about fueling 10 vehicles. Talking about the people that come into those 10 vehicles. That's money. And this is one thing that exaggerates the budgets and the expenses between ministers, senators, and government personnel in Nigeria.
Exactly. Let me just buttress the point you just talked about, talking about the fact that every government official is a servant to the country. When you hear the concept of civil service, it simply means your job, your authority, your job is simply to serve the community, to serve the state, to serve the government. So it is the duty of the government of various African countries to make sure that every civil servant is paid fairly. Do not make the money so much that at the end of the day, the people that are going there are simply going there for the money. Trust me, if you find out that the people that want to be in the House of Representatives, the legislature, the executive, if you reduce the amount of money they earn, you find out that the positions become unattractive. It will be also unattractive that the people that would contest are people that truly have the quest to serve. So at the end of the day, it shouldn't be exorbitant, squandering, squabbling the money of the people on the fact that people are just sitting down, deliberating, when teachers, people that impact are paid below par. It's really paradox.
Talking about paradoxal. Buhari says nation building requires sacrifice. Buhari tells 450 honorees. Requires sacrifice. What sacrifice are they making? Their time is a sacrifice when they are being overly paid for the sacrifice. 400. This is very, very disappointing. Now, let's just move on for that before I get very emotional about this. Lagos developer defrauds 200 house seekers. Victims blame police. We have that on page 4 and 5 of the Punch Nigeria. This is still more
on defrauding. Like, do you know how these guys have literally cashed out? That's why it's very, very important. When you see an information on a property that is being sold, a land that is being sold, accommodation that is available, you need to verify to the later, because fraudsters are on the loop. Every little opportunity, they'll defraud you, and then you just be wondering, how did I fall into this ditch?
All right, now moving on from that, very agree with you. Now, moving from that, now, this comes as opportune. Yesterday was October 11th, which was the day for girls' rights. And this paper came out that says Osinachi's husband abused her, singers, ex-employees tell Bukak. Now, Osinachi was one of Nigeria's Christians' favorite musicians. He had a lot of beautiful songs, and she made a whole lot of, people expected she made a whole lot of money, and she did actually make some money out of her music, which is understandable. And her husband, at some point, it appeared that he killed her. Why? Through beating. We talked about this, domestic violence, beating your wife or abusing your kids at home. Now, Osinachi, her employees have come out to tell the court that the husband really did abuse her. And not just that, he did that in front of them. This is very disappointing.
It's very disappointing. And the thing about this is just a clarion call to every woman, every girl, child out there listening to us and watching us right now, that do not suffer in silence. There's a stigma in the society, the African society, when a woman is divorced, when she's separated, when she's no longer with her family or her husband, they try to look down on you. But at the end of the day, I feel when you're separated, it's better to be alive to tell the story than to suffer in silence and die. So if you notice a man is molesting you, a teacher is molesting you, your father or a loved one is molesting you, please do not keep quiet, do not die in silence. Say no to domestic violence, and to everyone out there that has been a victim, don't die there. Speak out and be free.
All right, thank you very much for that. Moving on from that, now we have, our time is, creeping up on us. We'll be finishing very soon. So move on to the Daily Guide Nigeria, the Daily Guide Ghana, and we're going to run marathon through this now. The front page of the Daily Guide, Ghana reveals Jerry locks up China more. We have that and all this on page 3. Also, Team Munster goes home October 29th. Also, 8 witnesses for Aisha Hong trial. We have that on page 3. Minister chases over multimedia Galamsey story. Minister chases multimedia over Galamsey story. We're talking about the Galamsey, and people don't really understand what the Galamsey is.
Galamsey simply talks about the people. Galamsey simply means people that come, they take, and they sell. And Galamsey in this context is talking about the illegal gold mining. Now you have Aisha, a Chinese that has been illegally mining gold in Ghana. Not just that, she comes, illegally mines the gold, and then she sells it. So the fact that you have 8 witnesses saying truly she is guilty of this, that is basically what galamsey means. Come, take, and then you sell.
Thank you very much for that interpretation. Moving on from that, we head now to the New Vision Uganda. The New Vision Uganda reveals, they said 3,000 tackles gets 80 billion shillings PDM cash. We have students to assess teachers, lecturers. We have that on page 3. Students assess some teachers. That seems fair. We have that on page 3 because sometimes some teachers, no teacher is perfect. Moving on from that, past O-level chemistry and geography inside. That's still talking about education coming in from the New Vision Uganda. We have it on page 20 and page 21. Moving on from that, we head to the next paper. This is touch on the Namibian. The front page of the Namibian, we can move from that. The front page of the Namibian reveals hung off the hook. President Friend faces only non-serious charge. State House confirms Gengbo met with Long Han in Luanda. If you're interested more about political analysis coming from Namibia, you can get that on page 7. Body discovered a Caribbean suspected to be that of the missing boy. There's a missing child that has been placed on all over the Namibian, reported all over the Namibian for quite a while, and a body has been discovered, and it is believed this might be the body of the child. Hopefully not. Hopefully still alive. You can find out more about that on page 8 of the Namibia. Moving on from that, we head to the next paper of the edition, touching on the Daily News Egypt. The front page of the Daily News Egypt reveals IMF downgrades Egypt's economic growth forecast to 4.4 in current FY. This also happened to Nigeria. So Nigeria went by a couple of percentages. Also, Egypt's external debt declined to $155 billion by end of June, says the central bank in Egypt. Moving on from the lower part of it, it says government raises prices to natural gas for manufacturers by more than 100%. Wow. Also, the right hand of the paper says Egypt, Moldova foreign ministers confirm their country's desire to strengthen cooperative relationships. As long as this cooperative relationships is going to improve the standard of living for Egyptians and the Moldovians, of course, it's well welcomed. Moving on from that, we head now to the Star from Kenya. The front page from Star from Kenya says the ECC cast doubts on some Ruto's CS peaks as the agency says nominees must pass the integrity test before they are formally appointed. You have it on page 4 and 5. Looking at the bottom half of the page says, looking at the capital market, says state to auction 10 prostables to boost NTE listing. We have that on page 11. Also, local dance with crocodiles as lake swells. Local dance with crocodiles as lake swells. Okay, as lake is growing, increases the population of crocodiles coming into the lake, so people have to be careful there. In Kenya, that's on page 14 and page 15. Now, that's all we have for you for this edition of the African Newspaper Review. Our time is up.
Thank you so much, Metokoya Adoglo. And our dear viewers, to conclude this news edition, here's a recap of our top stories. In Lesotho, a millennial political novice has won the most votes in the legislative. Meto.
In Mozambique, northern Cabo Delgado province, more than 4,000 people have been killed and nearly 1 million were forced to flee their homes.
There we also saw that there were strong indications that public universities in Nigeria would soon reopen for academic activities. And of course, our dear viewers, this is where we conclude today's news edition, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa here in the city of Cotonou. Now, I am Hazel OGOIGBE.
And I'm Michael ADOGLO.
Enjoy the rest of your day.